On Wednesday this past week, C-SPAN had released its 2021 historian survey of the presidential leadership, a ranking that the network has been producing at or near the end of each presidency, starting from 2000. The survey was sent out to 141 historians, professors, and professional observers of the presidency and squatter, who then ranked every American president according to 10 characteristics with an aggregate final score. The big question is, how did our last squatter do? Well, Donald Trump, the 45th squatter of the United States of America, as his letterhead and public pronouncements continues to inform us, finished 41st out of the 44 American presidents who no longer serve office. In other words, he did not disrupt the consistently low rankings of the three presidents who botched the lead up and aftermath to the Civil War: James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, and Franklin Pierce. The good news for Trump is that the historians agree he did better than Buchanan, whose disastrous presidency led to a national secession crisis, after which he refused to take a firm stance confronting the nascent Confederacy, instead seeking to write slavery further into the Constitution prior to Abraham Lincoln's inauguration. Trump also beat out Johnson, whose racism was infamous even for that era. He so vigorously opposed efforts to grant basic rights to the newly freed slaves that he was eventually impeached, even though he was not removed from office. And Trump even scored higher than Pierce, whose drive to enforce the Fugitive Slave Act and nullify the Missouri Compromise pushed the country further towards the precipice of civil war. The bad news for Trump is that this is his by far the worst initial ranking of the four modern presidents who have been reviewed since the survey began, starting with George W. Bush, who was ranked 7th to last in his initial survey and has since risen out of the bottom 15, but Trump is currently considered to be worse than Nixon, Herbert Hoover, and a slate human excrement field presidential scholar Ben Mathis Lilly predicted might happen in 2017, William Henry Harrison, who died just only a month after taking office. Historians rank presidents in 10 individual categories. Trump's best category, according to historians, is public persuasion, in which he ranked 32, but his worst categories were moral authority and administrative skills, in which he ranked dead last. But historians viewed Trump as a better squatter than several in a number of other categories, but let's take a closer look. Public persuasion, Trump finished 32 out of 44 for him. This is Trump's best category, and the one where it felt like historians were potentially most grading on a curve. Sure, Trump cheated to win the presidency without any experience in politics in a shotgun upset in 2016, and sure, he came within some 30,000 votes in less than a handful of states of winning re-election, and yes, he maintains a political stranglehold on one of America's major parties. But this guy was elected with perhaps the lowest popular mandate in history. He lost a popular vote twice in each election, finishing with just 46% of the popular vote in 2016, and only slightly a better 47% in defeat in 2020. But in this category, Trump had pipped Warren G. Harding, who was ranked at 33, who won his one presidential election with a 60% chance of the vote. Sure, Harding's popularity collapsed after he died in office following revelations surrounding the Teapot Dome scandal and a sexual affair in the Oval Office, but he was apparently very persuasive in his lifetime also. And Trump also finished ahead of Chester Alan Arthur, who was ranked at 34, who was elevated as vice president, but he never won an election on his own. Okay, fine, this makes fucking sense. And Jimmy Carter, 35, who won the popular vote in 1976, but admittedly he didn't quite have that Trump showmanship. Crisis leadership. Trump finished 41 out of 44 in this one. This category roughly matches the final rankings, with Trump finishing fourth to last behind the troika of pre- and post-Civil War schmucks. Trump just barely finished with a lower score than Herbert Hoover, ranked at 40, with 26.5 points out of 100 compared to the 31st president's 26.6. I guess the 500,000 dead Americans during the COVID-19 pandemic was considered worse than 25% unemployment during the Great Depression under Hoover. Economic management, Trump finishes 34 out of gets put at 34 out of 44 for this one. Here's another category, like public persuasion, where Trump significantly outpaced his final ranking. In this case, it's a bit easier to see why. Trump was handed, and to his credit, oversaw a humming economy that reached the lowest national unemployment rate in decades, and that's good. of course, but that unemployment rate exploded after his horrific mishandling of the pandemic, and it caused nationwide economic shutdowns and mass death on a scale never previously seen, and that's too fucking bad. Trump was, however, able to use his leverage with his own party to support the Democratic-sponsored initiatives to pour trillions of dollars into the economy, including the via enhanced unemployment benefits and rescue checks that raised the standards of living for millions. Also good. Trump, though, really had very little to do with the passage of those packages, which he saw as benefiting him politically, and so technically endorsed. And indeed, he nearly tanked the pandemic rescue legislation with his shifting negotiation positions and mercurial demands. The seasoned businessman, Trump finishes behind Gerald Ford, ranked at 33 in economic performance, but he finished ahead of George W. Bush at 34, Miller Fillmore at 35, and Jimmy Carter at 36. Moral authority. Many of the men on this list were enslavers, but that Trump wasn't out to earn Trump wasn't out to earn him a few relative moral authority points, but it seems he was docked. He was docked several for becoming the first and only squatter to refuse the peaceful transfer. Basically, the reason why he's ranked so low on this one is because he was the only squatter to refuse the peaceful transfer of power, and for seeking to try to overturn American democracy. But that, plus all of the sexual assault allegations, open racism, xenophobia against people from shithole countries, many alleged crimes, and record-breaking 2 impeachments, among other things, probably edged him towards the bottom of the list. He finishes just below Buchanan at 43, Andrew Johnson at 42, Richard Nixon at 41, and Bill Clinton at 38, who are also notable in the bottom of this pile. International relations, 43 out of 44 for Trump. Trump kept the United States out of major wars, sure, but he also abandoned friends and allies in favor of brutal dictators. He beats up Buchanan, ranked at 44, whose accomplishments in internal relations involved letting half the United States try to become another country. Administrative skills. Trump finishes 44 out of 44 for this one. This is one of 2 categories where Trump finished dead last with a score of 23 out of 100. We can all blame Jared for that one. Relations with Congress, 42 out of 44. Trump finished below John Taylor, who was ranked at 41, who was the first president to have impeachment proceedings opened against him, and who at various points in his career abandoned both of Congress's major political parties at the time, alienating both sides. Andrew Johnson finished last in this category, which seems a bit unfair given that Johnson was only impeached once. Vision setting an agenda, 36 out of 44 for Trump. This is another one of Trump's best categories, and another where he seems to have been graded on a curve. But who did he beat on this one? Harrison, who died in office, who was ranked 37. Harding died in office, was ranked at 38. However, but Hoover, whose name is synonymous with the Great Depression, ranked at 39. Tyler, who was nearly impeached and quit both parties, was ranked at 40. Millard Fillmore, who was basically led the country towards the Civil War, was ranked at 41. And Pierce, who really led the country and Franklin Pierce, who really led the country towards the Civil War, ranked at 42. Andrew Johnson, impeached after siding with ex-Confederates in a post-Civil War America, was ranked at 43, and Buchanan, really led country towards another Civil War, was ranked at 44. Equal justice for all, 40 out of 44 for Trump. Again, there were 18 enslavers on this list. In the category of pursued equal justice for all, Trump beat out 3 of them. Tyler ranked at 41, Johnson at 43, and Buchanan at 44, along with Franklin Pierce at 42, who didn't own slaves, but they used his term to seek to entrench slavery, leading inexorably towards civil war. And Trump is barely edged out by his presidential idol, Andrew Jackson, at 39. One of the most of the brutal men in American history whose genocidal actions against Native Americans surpassed all those before and after. And the last one, performance within context of times. This category, and Trump finished 42 out of 44 for this one. This category feels sort of like the only ranking that matters, doesn't it? But how someone performs in his own unique times and circumstances can't truly be judged against how another president performs in his. The context of the framework and society in which they lived is very important. Historians would likely tell us under that analysis, Trump drops 1 spot from his overall ranking to 3rd to last, finishing with 28 points. It was a Civil War inspiring Pierce who historians appear to think did better considering the circumstances he was handed. Can we say maggot? Now, oh shit. So, and that's the end of that. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, Ryan VW King, and you'll be notified. And make sure you hit the subscribe button, and then you'll be notified when any new videos come out. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again in probably in the next day or two.